Today on Spotlight, hey everybody, welcome back to another iteration of Spotlight. Basically, sometimes I don't have enough time to write full-fledged reviews for things, and sometimes I just want to look at upcoming games that are either have a demo available, early access, or it's just something I'm interested in looking at that time. And today I have for you My Beautiful Paper Smile by V Publishing. They were gracious enough to send me a code to give the game a look-see. The game as of now is available on Steam as a demo, but it is officially going into early access this coming Friday, June 19th for $15. The game is looking to be 4 chapters total, but 2 of the chapters will be available if you decide to play it. Chapter 1, My Beautiful Escape, and Chapter 2, A Place of Sorrow. But essentially, I'm going to be handling spotlights a little differently from now on, where originally I used to spend like 15-20 minutes giving you my first impressions of a game in a live Let's Play format. And after a while, I realized that's probably not the best way to go about things because I can't spend all the brain power simultaneously playing the game and trying to give coherent thoughts at the same time. So I figured, you know what, why don't we just go the post-commentary method? Let me spend a few hours on the game, and then I'll talk to you about it in a podcast fashion for like 20-25 minutes. The length of it may vary, of course, depending on the game that I'm playing, but I figured this is the best way to go about it. So, My Beautiful Paper Smile is a game deeply rooted in the psychological horror aspect. It doesn't rely on language, gore. There's a couple of grotesque imagery in here, and as you can tell from the presentation overall, it's very gritty in its style. I think the entire game was developed in the Unreal Engine, but everything has a very hand-drawn look to it. It's a style that I do feel makes the game instantly recognizable. So like a couple of months later down the road, when the full product releases and you start seeing screenshots everywhere, you can just look at it. It's like, oh yeah, I know that's My Beautiful Paper Smile, because everything has this scratchy hand-drawn feel to it. Paper Mario, the developers really hated your guts. I like it overall. In a strange way, it also kind of reminds me of, this is kind of like jumping genres here, but it kind of reminds me of Mad World for the Nintendo Wii with its black and white aesthetic. My only real complaint with it is that objects in the environment tend to blend in with one another. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what exactly is what, especially in a brightly lit room such as this. I think this is like the worst of it in my opinion, though, because after this everything kind of gets dark and dour for the sake of enhancing the atmosphere. But sometimes I feel it is hard to distinguish what exactly is what. Like, what's part of the wall? Is that a mattress, the shelf, the table on the ground? Later down the road, when you're talking to the guardsmen as you're getting ready to start the brunt of the chapter, you got these text boxes that show up, and I feel a certain time it's kind of hard to read because, you know, it's white backgrounds, black text in a game that is nothing but black and white, like walls, furniture, knickknacks, bric-a-brac, all that kind of stuff. Besides that, though, I have to give it to them because I really do dig the surreal, grotesque character designs. The game makes it a point to not cheapen out and rely on jump scares all the time, but you look at these faces and like these are the kind of faces you would see in a jump scare. Like when you get that suspicious file in that exe that you downloaded against all better nature. You know, these are the kind of things that will probably pop up in your face, but they're just part of the natural scenery. These are part of who these characters are. I don't know the exact nature of these children that we're playing. I know they're children, but they have like hooves for feet. Like they're almost like satyrs, I want to say. And I don't know if that symbolizes anything. I can look up a satyr symbolism now, I guess, on Google to get an idea what the developer might have in mind by making these children like a half men, half goat. You know, I'm also reminded of Lock, Stock, and Barrel, the little children from A Nightmare Before Christmas. There is something somewhat Burton-esque in these designs as well. It could be like the messy and spotty hair behind the masks themselves. I mean, very striking in their presence. I dig how the sides of the cloaks from the guards here look like monster jaws, but in the front they're smiling just as much as the kids are. Of course, once you get the intros out of the way, you start your daily routine, I guess, what's happening here, because it's a very dystopian sort of world. Things are clearly fucked beyond all recognition. You don't know exactly what's going on yet because the game is storytelling is very minimalistic, where it's up to you to decide what exactly is happening here. You've seen that kind of setup millions of times before in the indie scene and just video games in general, I want to say, in the past decade, I want to say. So that might be a little tiring for you. I don't mind it so much, because often that is part of the intended experience for these kind of games. And honestly, I was more distracted wondering God, what's going to pop up in the corner this time? Or am I going to get hounded by something? Is something unexpected going to happen? There's a part where you're doing your daily routine for today and you're just going about running around the corner. You find something in the room and you come back out and there are mannequins now suddenly out there, and it's like, okay, that wasn't like that before. I don't know what's happening. You find footsteps on the floor and it's like, I guess I should be following this. I'm not sure if I want to, but you're gonna go ahead and do it anyway because, well, you gotta see what the rest of the game holds. And that's kind of like the thrill of it. It's like, this is a bad idea. You're playing this game. It's like, this is a bad idea. I don't want to go here. I shouldn't go here. I'm just going to turn the game off right now. But no, it's like a morbid sense of curiosity. You just want to continue on and see what you're missing out on. And on occasion, you might be greeted with something. It's like, oh, no, yeah. I didn't want to see that. But that's part of the game. That's the entire name of the game. And at some points, you are actively encouraged to go and explore things because there are these little items you can find in both chapters. Like chapter 1 was these movie tickets, and chapter 2 are these coins. Like I think it was like 3 sets of coins that you can find, and they unlock like other things that are not necessarily tied to a story progression, but they are tied behind the lore of the story. If you want more pieces of the puzzle so that you can put it together, maybe make some more sense out of what's happening here. And that requires you to go out and about and check that door behind that cabin, check around that dark crevice on the other side of the field. And it works you up because you're not sure if that's ultimately a good idea at the end of the day. But I think this game does that really well. This game is really good at making me uneasy. And there was like 2 parts of the game where my heart was pounding because it's the anticipation. It's very similar to the sense of dread I had with, I want to say, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 so many years back, where you're waiting for something to happen. The game is making you wait for something to happen, and it's like it's not happening, but it's like you can't stop trembling. Your heart starts pounding. It's the nothingness. It's the fear of the unknown, I guess you could say. Very primal fear that gets you worked up. And then when something happens, when it's showtime, you are caught off guard, you are flustered, and you have to start making a run for it, or you have to defend yourself. And in chapter 1, there's a sequence where you get chased by one of these demonic-looking beings, and it's like their movement is very minimalistic. They start like glitching out. You're not sure because if it's spiritual in nature, or maybe you're like trapped in some sort of like virtual world and these things are like a glitch in the system. So Tim Burton presents the Matrix side, sort of detail. But whatever the case is, they're chasing after you, and there's not really any means of defending yourself in this game. If you get caught, that's it, you're dead. There's no real health bar, bearing this one time where you're chased by this creature in the open field in chapter 2. I do find that a little weird. Like, I don't know why is it that I die immediately in one hit from these dudes, and it takes multiple hits from the more menacing creature to kill me. Even if I have a means to defend myself with this blade that you pick up later, I don't quite understand why it takes a couple of shots for that thing to kill me, while this thing can just eat me in one shot. That's a minor thing, though. I'm not going to get too worked up about that. Just something that came to mind as I was talking about this. But I want to go into what I said earlier about understanding the nature of this world. And I don't know what to make of the plot so far because it's very minimalistic in its setting. You are given an intro as the game boots up about there being this king who was kind, and it's kind of written very favorably towards the king, so it's kind of like full of shit, where there was a kind and just king who loved his people more than anything in the world, but there was one person that was not as grateful for his contributions and all that. And I think what they're implying is that this is the kid that doesn't buy any of that, but there's also this voice that talks to the kid, like whenever he falls asleep. I think it's referred to as the lost child, and the voice is guiding you in some way to make an escape. But the nature of the voice is very up in the air. Is there really a voice at all? Is it just the kid's inner justification for, finding the courage to get out of the building itself? Like, what is happening in the story is something I can't say for sure. We don't know anything about anything that's going on besides like a basic premise. And it's just one of those things where you have to explore the environments. You have to put A and B together to come to C, and seeing if you like the substance of that answer, you will eventually discover, if you discover it at all. Let's be real though. It can work, and God knows there are a lot of games throughout the last few years that have engaged players and not just what they're seeing like then and there on the screen, but maybe things they couldn't catch on their first playthrough, little nuances that are only immediately obvious once you revisit those areas on like a second or third playthrough, to encourage players to keep coming back. And I don't mind that aspect of it at all, because I encourage games to have replayability in any form or fashion. It doesn't really matter the genre. It could be a psychological horror, it could be an action game, it could be a stealth game. I don't really care. Keep getting players to come back, give them their money's worth. I feel video games should give players a reason to come back and not be so much one and done. I'm not really for like the one and done experience, because to me, and you might disagree with this, that's no different than like watching a 2-hour movie. You watch it once, maybe discuss it with your friends later down the road, and you just let it collect the shelf. No, I'd rather a game deliver enjoyment in some form or fashion, and then you liked what you played so much and you want to go back and try it again, maybe catch something you didn't see the first time. You could do that with movies, but I feel video games inherently are just more engaging in that aspect. I don't quite understand the sketches you can find on the wall. Part of me likes to think these are just like the developers' friends, or maybe they were this is a Kickstarter game. This is like their backers who investigate. Oh, get your face in the game. I don't know if they're supposed to be part of the story. They're so radically out of place from the rest of the game's design that I'm a little distracted by that, because I don't entirely know if it's just a little Easter egg, or is it part of the game's story? Like, are these faces? I don't know. This is what everybody looks like behind these masks. I couldn't tell you. Don't try and remove that mask, though. I thought I was smart with one point where you're fighting this boss and you have to use a certain tactic to distract them and then find the means to defeat them. And I thought, oh, wait, maybe if I did this, and then did not expect the thing that happened to happen. I was like, okay, well, not going to do that again, because I don't like it when that shit happens. But that was good. That was a great gotcha moment from the game, and I do appreciate that as a game that's, again, a psychological horror. A game like this wants to scare you, make you uneasy, and that certainly made me uneasy in more ways than one. The game uses keyboard and mouse for basic controls. There's no controller options as far as I'm aware. It's a very simplistic game, though. You're only really moving with WASD, and you're interacting with objects with a mouse, maybe every once in a while opening the inventory with the whatever key you have it mapped to. You're allowed to fully customize controls, and I really do dig that, so thank you very much for giving me that option. Controls really won't be so much of an issue anyway in this kind of game, where for the most part you are essentially on rails. There are times where you can like explore the left side of the screen instead of the right side, maybe for one of those optional collectibles, but really this is a game where it's not about what you can do, but how you react to what is going to happen. The only sort of hurdle I ran into in the game was in chapter 2, where after you take the blade, there's a point where you're gonna have to defend yourself from this creature that's kind of stalking you. And the way you do this is by you clicking on the beast as it's approaching you, and maybe my timing wasn't as tight as it could have been, but it manages to get a shot at me as I'm clicking on it to like attack it, and if you hit it, it runs away. And you gotta do that a couple of times, but there are times where I feel the creature just moves a little too fast, and the sword in itself felt unresponsive. It doesn't feel like it was a part of the intentional design. I also ran into a glitch because of that, because it's the only glitch I ran into. I think what happened was that I managed to attack the creature on the same frame that it killed me, and normally if you die, you just get like, you died screen, would you like to retry? And I think what happened is that I managed to hit it, and it killed me at the same time, but it faded to black, but it never loaded the retry screen, and I was just kind of stuck in limbo, so I had to essentially reset the game. But that was the only real like major glitch I ran into, and it was an easy fix, because this game likes to save a lot. It is full of a lot of checkpoints, so that you don't have to do that much if you decide to go against your better judgment and get yourself killed. I have to give it to the developer, though. 2-star games, I have to question the name 2-star games. Like, I hope that's like not on a 2 out of 5 rating basis. Come on, don't have low self-esteem, man. Come on, you're doing great. But no, this game was developed by just one dude, and I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher this name. Gavin, it's either Eisenbies or Eisenbies. I'm not sure, I apologize. Just one dude made this entire thing. All the art assets, the engine itself, the sound design. I'm always going to have a respect for those that can really pour that much passion and dedication into something they really want to see come to life, and it doesn't look like total ass. And I reviewed plenty of games throughout the years that were like solo developed that ended up being amazing in a lot of ways. Dust and Elysian Tale, Undertale, I think is probably the biggest example I could think of. No, man, you got this one dude who, probably put these doodles on a piece of paper and say, you know what, I bet you I can put this piece of paper into a program and make a game out of it. And there you go. This is my beautiful smile. So yeah, I spent about 2 hours on this. Each chapter only took me about 50 minutes to an hour to complete. And that was with a large amount of just wandering back and forth because I wanted to find more of those collectibles just for shits and giggles. I was not really bored with the experience. Honestly, I was just like darting my eyes left and right to make sure nothing was suddenly entering my field of vision and giving me a scare. Honestly, given the darkened environments of the game, you don't know if or when that's going to happen. And that's good. I hate that feeling of being nervous, of that anxiety that just festers your soul as you're playing the game. But that is what the game is trying to do, and I have to say, mission accomplished. I'm looking forward to this when the full product is eventually released. I believe the target time for that is the end of 2020. Hopefully the pandemic and all that didn't really affect the development time of this game. But no, when this game fully comes out, I can see this being really fun to live stream with my Twitch audience, or I'll give it a full-fledged review, give Elliot some time to dabble into this too, because I think he'd jump all over this kind of game. I mean, he lives for these kind of games. And if you're interested in this game yourself, again, this game is going into early access on June 19th over on Steam. And again, there is a demo for it right now, free to download. If you want to like dabble into it without spending a dime, you can do that too. And yeah, I want to thank 2-Star Games and V Publishing for the Steam code. Looking forward to when the game is fully released. I hope you guys enjoyed this iteration of Spotlight. Again, going for a more post-commentary approach for this so that I can give you a more coherent thoughts and not have to worry about going brain dead as I'm holding the controller in my hand. It's like a mini discussion that I have with myself, and I think I can get more out of that. And as always, thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.